Before we begin, if you're listening to this alone at night, you're exactly where you should be. Subscribe and turn on notifications for more true horror stories, disturbing encounters, and unexplained events uploaded every day. Now lock your doors, turn off the lights, and let's get into tonight's stories. If you've ever bought a car, you've probably taken a test drive. A salesperson rides along. You make small talk. Maybe you negotiate a little. Then you either buy the car, or you don't. It seems simple, but every dealership has at least one vehicle the sales staff quietly avoids. Not because there's anything mechanically wrong with it, because everyone who drives it comes back talking about someone who wasn't in the car when they left. I thought those stories were just another sales floor rumor, until I volunteered to take the dealership's oldest trade-in out one last time. My name is Jordan. I worked as a sales consultant at a mid-sized dealership outside Dallas. Most days followed the same routine. Greet customers, explain financing, walk the lot, take people on test drives, repeat. We sold mostly used vehicles. Trade-ins arrived every week. Some stayed only a day before selling. Others sat on the lot for months. One dark gray sedan had been sitting there longer than anyone could explain. Nobody wanted to drive it. The mechanics said it was in excellent condition. The detail department kept it spotless. Every inspection passed. Still, every salesperson found an excuse to hand the keys to someone else. I finally asked my manager why. He laughed. Take it for a drive. If you still want to sell it tomorrow, it's yours. After closing, I grabbed the keys. The sedan started instantly. Smooth idle. No warning lights. Perfect. I left the dealership and headed toward the bypass. For the first 10 minutes, nothing unusual happened. The ride was quiet, comfortable, exactly what you'd expect from a well-maintained car. Then, the passenger seatbelt alarm chimed. I glanced over. The passenger seat was empty. Thinking my laptop bag had shifted onto the seat, I reached over. Nothing there. The warning stopped, then started again. The digital display read, "Passenger detected." I slowed down and pulled into an empty grocery store parking lot. I shut the engine off, opened every door, checked under every seat. The cabin was empty. When I restarted the car, the warning disappeared. I laughed at myself. Probably a faulty seat sensor. Easy repair. As I merged back onto the highway, the navigation screen lit up by itself. No destination had been entered, yet the map displayed a route. Estimated arrival, 11 minutes. Destination, home. The problem was, it wasn't my home address. I tried canceling the route. The screen froze. The steering wheel controls stopped responding. The radio switched off. The only thing left on the display was the blue route line. Curiosity got the better of me. I followed it. The GPS guided me off the highway onto smaller roads. Neighborhoods became farther apart. Street lights disappeared. Eventually, the pavement turned into a narrow county road surrounded by woods. The route ended at a small white house. Dark, empty. The driveway contained no vehicles. The mailbox had fallen over. The place looked abandoned. Before I could put the car into reverse, the driver's door unlocked by itself. Then the passenger door. Then the rear doors. One after another. No one got in. The infotainment screen went black. Then one line of white text appeared. "Thank you for the ride." Every door locked again. At the exact same moment, I drove straight back to the dealership without stopping. The next morning, I told one of the technicians about the navigation problem. He connected the diagnostic scanner. No fault codes, no saved destinations, no recent navigation history. According to the vehicle, it had never left the dealership. A few days later, an older customer came to look at the sedan. The moment he saw it, he stopped walking. His face turned pale. He quietly asked, "Where did you get this car?" I checked the file. It was a trade-in. He shook his head. "No, that was my brother's." He explained that his brother had owned the sedan for years. He loved taking late-night drives. One evening, he never came home. The car was eventually recovered several counties away. Locked, undamaged, empty. No one ever discovered how it got there, or where its owner had gone. The customer refused to go near the vehicle. He left the dealership without another word. Management eventually sent the sedan to auction. At least, that was the plan. Transport paperwork was completed. The carrier arrived, loaded the vehicle, signed the forms. Everything looked normal. 2 mornings later, the sedan sat back in its original parking spot, freshly washed. The auction stickers had disappeared. The transport company insisted they'd delivered it. Security cameras showed the carrier leaving with the vehicle. It never returned. The dealership owner finally removed the keys from inventory. The sedan stayed parked at the back of the lot for months. No price tag, no window sticker, no advertisements. Customers occasionally asked about it. Salespeople always gave the same answer. That one's not for sale. I eventually left the dealership for another career. But every now and then, I'll drive past the old lot after dark. The gray sedan is usually still there, parked in the last row, driver's seat empty, headlights off, waiting, and every once in a while, just as I pass the entrance, its passenger seatbelt warning chimes, even though there's never anyone inside. Every dealership depends on trade-ins. They're how used car lots stay full. Customers bring in their old vehicles. A salesperson checks the mileage. A technician inspects the condition. The detail department cleans everything. Then the car goes on the lot. It's the same process every single day. But every dealership eventually gets one trade-in that nobody can explain. Not because it's damaged. Not because it's stolen. Because every employee who spends time alone with it starts hearing someone asking how much it's worth. My name is Blake. I worked as a used car manager at a dealership outside Kansas City. Part of my job was evaluating trade-ins before we offered customers a price. I'd inspect the exterior, check the service history, drive the vehicle, then decide what the dealership could realistically sell it for. After a while, every car looked the same, until a dark green SUV rolled onto the appraisal lane one rainy afternoon. The owner was an older man, quiet, polite. He didn't negotiate, didn't ask what the vehicle was worth. He simply handed me the keys and said, "I don't want it back." I assumed it had serious mechanical problems. Maybe a failing transmission. Maybe flood damage. Those vehicles often weren't worth repairing. The inspection surprised me. The SUV was nearly perfect. No warning lights. Clean interior. Complete maintenance records. Even the tires looked new. There was no reason to refuse it. I offered the customer a fair trade-in value. He shook his head. "I don't care what you pay. I just need it gone." He signed the paperwork without reading it, then walked out of the dealership. He never even looked back at the SUV. Our detail department cleaned it that evening. The next morning, the SUV was filthy again. Mud covered the tires. Dead leaves rested on the hood. The odometer displayed 12 more miles than it had the previous afternoon. The keys had remained locked in the manager's office all night. No one had driven it. I assumed someone had entered the mileage incorrectly. We cleaned it again, photographed it, listed it online. Within hours, a customer scheduled a test drive. The appointment lasted less than 5 minutes. The customer returned the keys. "I'm not buying that one. Something wrong with it?" He hesitated. It kept asking me questions. I laughed. "The navigation system?" "No, the back seat." He left without another explanation. Over the next week, 3 more customers drove the SUV. None bought it. Every one of them described something different. One heard whispering. Another claimed someone tapped on the rear window while driving. One woman insisted a child had asked if she was taking him home. Our technicians found nothing. No electrical faults. No loose trim. Nothing that could explain any of it. One evening, I stayed late finishing paperwork. The showroom had already closed. Sales staff had gone home. Only a few mechanics remained in the service department. The SUV sat under the lights in the center of the used car lot. As I locked the showroom doors, its headlights turned on. No remote start. No key nearby. Just low beams shining across the empty parking lot. I walked outside. The lights shut off before I reached it. The driver's door was unlocked. Inside, the dashboard clock displayed the wrong time. Every button on the radio illuminated. Yet the ignition remained completely off. Then, the infotainment screen lit up. One sentence appeared. "Appraisal complete." The screen immediately went black. The following morning, our inventory system showed the SUV had already been sold. Customer name: missing. Purchase price: $0. Delivery status: Completed. Accounting assumed it was a software error. The record disappeared after a system restart. That afternoon, I searched the glove compartment for previous ownership documents. Instead, I found an old dealership appraisal form. Different dealership, different state. The vehicle description matched the SUV exactly. At the bottom, under the sales manager's notes, someone had handwritten 4 words. Do not accept trade. No explanation. No signature. Curiosity got the better of me. I called the dealership listed on the paperwork. An older receptionist answered. When I mentioned the SUV, she became unusually quiet, then transferred me to the general manager. He listened patiently. Finally he asked, "Is it still on your lot?" "Yes." He sighed. "It won't be for long." "What does that mean?" "It never is." Before I could ask another question, he ended the call. That night, a transport company arrived to take the SUV to a wholesale auction. I watched the driver load it himself. Chains secured, paperwork signed, everything routine. The next morning, the transport company called. They wanted to know why we'd never sent the SUV. I told them I watched it leave. They insisted their trailer had arrived empty. I walked outside. The SUV sat in its original parking space. Still clean, still locked, still wearing the transport tag we'd attached the night before. The owner finally ordered it removed from inventory. No advertisements, no online listing, no window sticker. It remained parked behind the service building where customers couldn't see it. Several weeks later, I arrived before sunrise. The lot was empty except for one vehicle. The green SUV, parked directly outside my office door. The keys rested neatly on the hood. Beside them sat a handwritten appraisal form. Only one question appeared on the page. What am I worth? I never answered it. I handed the keys to the general manager and resigned a month later. Some vehicles lose value with every mile they're driven. Others cost much more than they're worth, especially when they keep finding their way back to the dealership, looking for one more trade. Every dealership closes the same way. The last customer leaves. The salespeople lock the showroom. The service department shuts off the lifts. Someone walks the lot to make sure every vehicle is locked. It's the easiest part of the day. Until one evening, I finished locking nearly 200 cars and found one more sitting in the middle of the showroom. A car that hadn't been there when we closed. A car that wasn't in our inventory. And somehow, every key in the dealership fitted. My name is Nathan. I worked as the closing manager for a large dealership outside Atlanta. Unlike the sales staff, my job started getting busy after everyone else left. I checked the service bays, locked the finance offices, counted inventory, made sure every vehicle on the property was secured before the alarm system was activated. It was repetitive, predictable, exactly the kind of routine that makes you notice when something is out of place. One Thursday night, business had been unusually slow. By 9 o'clock, every customer was gone. The showroom lights dimmed automatically. Only a handful of employees remained. After everyone clocked out, I grabbed the master key ring and began my nightly lot inspection. We had just under 200 vehicles spread across the property. New inventory, used inventory, customer vehicles waiting for service. It usually took about 40 minutes to check them all. Everything looked normal. Every vehicle was where it belonged. Every door was locked. Every window was closed. When I finished outside, I returned to the showroom. That's when I stopped walking. A black luxury sedan sat in the center of the showroom floor, perfectly positioned beneath the ceiling lights. The paint reflected the polished tile like a mirror. I knew every display vehicle. This wasn't one of them. I checked the front doors. Still locked. The motion alarm hadn't activated. The security system showed no entries since closing. Thinking another manager had moved a vehicle inside for a promotion. I searched the inventory system. No record. No stock number. No VIN. Nothing. I walked around the sedan. No window sticker. No temporary tag. No manufacturer badge. Even the steering wheel logo was blank. The driver's door wasn't locked. Inside, everything smelled new. The seats had no wrinkles. The odometer read exactly 1 mile. I reached for the ignition button. Before my finger touched it, the dashboard illuminated. Every screen came to life. One message appeared. Welcome back. I immediately stepped away. The display shut off. My radio crackled. It was the overnight security guard. "Nathan, did somebody come back inside?" "No." "Why?" "I just saw someone walking through the showroom." I looked around. We were completely alone. The guard entered a minute later. He checked every office, every conference room, every restroom. Nobody. As we prepared to leave, the dealership phone rang. The caller ID displayed only one word: customer. I answered. Silence. Then, a calm voice asked, "Has my car sold yet?" "What vehicle?" "The black one." The line disconnected. The security guard looked at me. "You know him?" I slowly shook my head. The next morning, the sedan was gone. The showroom floor was empty. Every employee insisted it hadn't been there, even the security guard. When I mentioned helping me search the building, he looked confused. I wasn't here last night. According to the schedule, he was telling the truth. Another guard had worked the shift, a guard who had called in sick before midnight. I reviewed the security footage. The cameras showed me walking into the showroom, stopping, then spending nearly 20 minutes talking to someone just outside the frame. Whenever I stepped toward the black sedan, the footage briefly distorted. When it cleared, I was standing alone. There was no vehicle, no security guard, nothing. Management assumed the camera system had malfunctioned. They replaced the recorder, installed new cameras, upgraded the alarm system. Problem solved, or so they believed. A month later, I was closing again. The lot inspection went perfectly. Every car accounted for, every key returned. I walked back into the showroom. The black sedan was waiting, exactly where it had been before. This time, there was an envelope resting on the hood. My name was written neatly across the front. Inside, I found a sales contract. Buyer name, blank. Purchase price, $0. Vehicle description, blank. Only one line had already been signed. Sales manager. Not my signature. Not anyone's handwriting I recognized. As I folded the paperwork, the showroom speakers turned on. Soft instrumental music filled the building. Exactly the kind of music dealerships play during business hours. Then, I heard a man's voice. Very polite, very professional. "Congratulations. Your customer has arrived." The front entrance doors unlocked by themselves, slowly sliding open. Beyond the glass, the parking lot was empty, except for one person. A man in a dark suit stood beneath the dealership sign, hands in his pockets, watching the showroom, watching me. He never waved, never moved. I locked the doors again, pulled the emergency shutters down, and waited until sunrise before opening them. When daylight finally filled the showroom, the man was gone. So was the sedan. Only the unsigned sales contract remained on my desk. I resigned 2 weeks later, not because I was afraid, because I realized something. Every dealership measures success by how many cars leave the lot. But somewhere, there's a dealership that isn't trying to sell cars at all. It's trying to find one more salesperson willing to complete a deal that was never meant to close. Even now, whenever I drive past a dealership late at night, I glance through the showroom windows. Most are empty, exactly as they should be. But every once in a while, I see a black sedan parked under the lights. No price tag, no license plate, no salesperson nearby, just waiting for someone to walk inside and ask if it's still available.